Thank you for watching Volunteer Audio. Today I'm going to show you how to install our new Hertz HMP4D-SS. It's a plug-and-play 600 watt amp for the Soundstream reserve head unit. So hang out and I'll show you everything about it. Hello, I'm Jay from Volunteer Audio, Oliver Springs, Tennessee. We're shooting a video today to show you how to install our HMP4D-SS. It's a Hertz 600 watt amp. It is completely plug and play to the new Soundstream Reserve HDHU14 Plus radio. So we've already done this video previously on a Road Glide. Today we're going to show you how to put it in a 2016 Streetglide. We're going to go step by step to show you how easy the process is and to show you how you could do this on your own. The amplifier is going to come completely pre-wired. We're going to plug this in at the radio, route power and ground to the battery, and it's done. It's really going to be that easy, and I'm going to show you step by step because at Volunteer Audio we've already done the hard part. It's already wired, and we've already set all your gains and all the crossover frequencies in the amplifier. So nothing here that is very technical. If you can take apart the bike and put it back together, as you're going to see in this video, you can do this on your own. While we're doing it, we're going to go ahead and run what's called a backbone harness. So if you didn't have factory rear speakers, there's no wiring run to the back. So we also have this harness that we sell on our website, and we can include in one of these kits if you're going to do rear speakers. If you're on the fence about rear speakers, go ahead and run this. While you have your gas tank off and you're routing power and ground, run your speaker wires down, leave it underneath the seat. And in the future, if you add Turpack speakers or saddlebag lid speakers, we have another harness that just plugs into this and makes that very easy. So let's get to the bike. We'll get the amp installed and I'll show you how to get this done. All right, so we last left off in our previous video in this same part. We left our fairing off because we were going to show you how to put the amplifier in. Now, if you're wondering how we got to this point, just go back and watch the video about how we installed our Soundstream HDHU14 head unit and our front speakers. So if you'll watch that, it'll get you caught up to this point. So I've already removed a little sticky pad that used to be on the amp plate or on top of the radio plate that used to hold our GPS antenna. This is the exact location if you had a Boom Audio amplifier or the Rockford kits that Harley sells, they would mount the amp in the same spot. So this is the place we also choose to put our Hertz HMP4D amp. So first step I want you to do is you want to clean this plate. I've got rubbing alcohol in a spray. They also sell it in bottles. You can spray it on a rag, spray a little bit on the plate, and then clean it off because we're going to secure our amplifier here with an industrial sized piece of Velcro. That's going to work really well to hold it right where it needs to be. And if you bought this kit for a Streetglide, we're going to send that Velcro with it. It may even already be installed to the bottom of the amplifier, depending on who puts this together for you. Either way, either stick it on the bottom of the amp or just unpeel it and stick it here to the plate. So we've wiped it clean. We just want to make sure the dirt is off of it. Now I have our amplifier. Now on your particular amp, this end of the amplifier is already going to have a plate bolted to it and sealed because we've done all the adjustments. Every time I do an installation, even though I already know where they're supposed to be, we preset it, I do the install, and then I double check it with a DD1 meter. In case there's ever a change in our amp manufacturer on any of the components inside, I want to know immediately so you always get the right settings on your amplifier. So you've got the amp, it's pre-wired, and you'll see there's a big piece of Velcro. Just unpeel that. And we're going to set this amplifier right up in here under this vent. Then just press down firmly so that it will secure, and it is very, very strong. You won't have to worry about this ever coming loose, sliding around in your fairing. The next step we're going to do is we're going to take out, if you've already had your Soundstream radio, you're going to take out the original harness from your first install. Now if you buy these together, you're only going to have one harness. So I'm going to unplug the original one. And always, before you plug any of this into the bike, transfer your thumb control module. Again, if you bought the radio and the amp together, we're only going to send you the one harness, so this step won't be necessary. We're going to plug this in first because if we plug it in after we apply power, it's not going to know what radio it was supposed to be on, and your thumb controls will not function. So here's our input harness. It's going to go down and plug into our amplifier. And we've already cut this to the proper length, so you don't have a bunch of extra wires hanging out in your fairing. The next part is we're going to connect the existing Harley harness up to the other side. All right, so what we just did is we just connected all the inputs to the amplifier, all the outputs of the amplifier back to all the factory speaker locations. If you were going to add lower pods, we have a T-harness that just tees in at the upper pods. If you're going to run rear speakers, that's going to be the next thing I'm going to show you. We've got a backbone harness that's going to plug into this 4-pin black harness. From the factory on a Streetglide, this is all stuck just right up where the amp is. So you're going to find that black connector. Normally there's a block-off plug in it. That's where the backbone harness goes. If it was a road glide with a very similar situation, these are going to be connected to the back of the stock headlight. And you're going to look for this same connector. It's the same connector on either bike, just a little different on where they put it. So we'll secure this wiring up after we get our power and ground run to the back. So here you have our copper motorcycle amp kit already pre-wired in. So I'm going to route this to the back, and the next step is we're going to pull the gas tanks. We can do that properly down the backbone. So the first step to running our power back is to remove our seat. Most seats are going to be held on with one thumb screw or Phillips screw toward the back of the seat. This seat has an additional add-on for the rear passenger. So it's got a couple bolts here. They're a 16 millimeter. We're going to remove the nuts off of these studs. Seats are definitely very easy to remove. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take the different bolts off the gas tank. We're going to have two 13 millimeters at the back of the tank, one on each side at the front. They're going to be covered by a little rubber cap, looks like this. So remove that on each side. While you're here, there should be two bolts holding the battery tray cover on. This one only has one, but go ahead and remove that other bolt because you're going to be accessing the battery here shortly while you got your tools out. So I'll go ahead and take those out. All right, so that's all the bolts that are securing the gas tank on. Next, you're going to see that there is a fuel return line that you just pull on and unplug. Unplug the fuel sending unit that goes to your gauge, as well as the vent that runs down the side of the motor toward the ground. So pull those out. Now let me show you how to disconnect the fuel line. All right, so Harley puts this nice quick disconnect. If you unplug this, it's not going to leak fuel out of the tank, so don't worry about if it's a full tank or not. Very simply, you just push this silver sleeve up. That's going to release the fuel line. Now you'll get a few drips out, which is why I always put a rag underneath here when we do this. But that's how easy it is to disconnect your fuel. All right, so we are ready to pull this fuel tank up. Now I want to talk about something else. If you have had somebody install lighting, underglow lighting under your gas tank, on your frame rails and such, definitely look and see if they've adhered those to the bottom of the gas tank, and if so, disconnect those electrical connectors. You don't want to lift this up and break your lights. No tape on this one. All right, so now that we have our gas tank off, we're going to remove the cover off the backbone harness. I'm going to remove this part, unsnap the ABS lines. Now I'll use a small blade straight screwdriver and just unhook each one of these little clips. And most of the time there's going to be a piece of tape wrapped around in a couple locations that's not on this bike. If so, just cut that tape so that you can release this cover as well. This is definitely the correct place to run all your wiring. It's where Harley did it. It's where we're going to do it. Too many times we see people that don't want to take the gas tank off because they're scared of it, and they run it up the side here, and we don't want that wire to ever fall down and get burnt by the engine or short out. So here we've got our cover off. All right, so the power wire that we just had hanging off the amplifier, we're going to feed it back along the side of the rail here. All right, so we're going to pull it through just where the factory wires run, and we're going to drop it into this same backbone area. So for now, we're going to run it back like this until we install our cover. Now we have one more thing that we're going to install, and I would suggest if you think you may do it in the future to go ahead and do it, and that's run the backbone speaker harness as well. So let's plug it in and route it back while we're doing it. So I showed you the connector earlier in the fairing where it plugs. It was this black 4-pin connector. It normally has blue wires on it. Plug it in till you hear it snap, and route it the same place we just routed that power wire. Now we'll zip tie all the wiring and the fairing up afterwards and make it all look real nice. Same thing, drop it in the same location, run it back underneath the gas tank. Now we're going to put our cover back on. Now make sure that none of the factory wires have come out or hanging out so that you don't pinch any of those as you close this up. All right, so now our power's ran out where our battery is, and so is our backbone harness for our rear speakers. Now at this point, I'm going to add a few zip ties up here at the top. I'm going to get ready to put our gas tank back on before we do the rear. You're just going to secure this to the factory wiring that's already ran to the front. Just makes it look better. When you're done, use a set of flush cut cutters and flush cut those zip ties so in the future you don't cut your arm and your hand as you graze across them. All right, before we connect to the battery, I'm going to go ahead and put the gas tank back on. Go ahead and start all the bolts before you tighten any. All right, so same method as earlier, just lift up on that silver sleeve and plug your fuel line back in. It's going to snap. When you hear that snap, you know it's good and secure. Route your vent line back down the frame, and normally from the factory it is zip tied to a couple lines right here next to this rear peg. Make sure you reconnect that as well as your fuel gauge and the fuel return line. All right, so now let's pull our battery tray up to where we can access our battery and make our connections there. You want to disconnect your ECM, just kind of set it out here to the side. All right. So most of the time there are going to be Phillips screws that hold the battery to the cables. You're going to take your red wire that's got the fuse on it. It's going to go to the positive post. And be ready, if you've got a bike that has a factory alarm, its siren is going to be going off while you're doing this. All you have to do is flick the ignition on and off and it'll quit making the noise. Make sure you get these good and tight. Now we've already installed the mini wafer fuse in the fuse holder, and after we do that and we make sure it's good and tight, we zip tie it closed just to make sure that the rubber housing never comes open and shorts on something in here. And we do use a rubber one that is waterproof. So once you've made those connections, just tuck the fuse holder and what excess wire you have here to the front of the battery. Once you've got that in, you can put your battery tray back on. The cover for the battery anyways. All right. Put our ECM back in where it goes. All right, so at this point, we have connected the power to from our amp to our battery. If you weren't doing rear speakers, you would be done with this part. Seat would go on, you just put your outer fairing back on, and you would be done. So we've ran our backbone harness here. I'm gonna go ahead and kind of leave it here for the moment. We're gonna be doing another video, it's gonna be following this video, where we're gonna install a cut kit on these lids along with 6x9s and install the rear saddlebag lid harness kit that we sell. So at this point, we're going to wrap this video up. It's going to play and sound great at the end of the next video. All right, so I didn't want to end the video without showing you the final result of the amp installation. So I've got it mounted. I went ahead and added a few zip ties just to secure the harnessing up. If you'll notice, I put the thumb control module up a little higher. We don't want to leave it dangling in the bottom. It may get wet and cause problems in the future. But with our harness, it's very clean. Looks really good once you're done. This is very difficult for a DIY or even most shops to create a very clean looking harness in the fairing. But I wanted to show it to you, show you it was finished before we move on to our rear speakers. And again, that'll be in the next video, so definitely watch the next one where we show you how to add the 6x9s and do the cut kit. But I want to wrap this one up and tell you thank you for watching. Thank you for commenting on the videos if you do. If you liked this video, if it's helped you, if it's made you feel more confident about tackling something like this yourself, definitely like the video, share it with your friends, and please subscribe to the channel. The more of you that subscribe, the more encouragement we have to make more videos. So thank you again. There's two things we love to talk about, so I'd love for you to reach out to us at 1-844-30-AUDIO. Those two things are motorcycle audio and Jesus, so either one, give me a call. And also visit us at www.volunteeraudio.com, and you'll see these packages are available on there for purchase. Every single amp we build, we go through a lot of steps to make sure that it's easy for you and to make sure you don't have any problems. Every one that we build to order, we test, it gets plugged up to our test bench and played for 15-20 minutes just to make sure there's no issues at all before we ever get it to you. I don't want you to go through this and at the end find out there's a problem. But thank you very much. Thank you for watching, and God bless.